And welcome to a special live edition of Free Minds TV, where we are broadcasting live from Keene, New Hampshire at the 2009 Pumpkin Festival. And as always, it is Toby here with you.
And Nick.
And this is a special edition for people who are watching us live. It's just getting started. We're broadcasting here. It's just 9 in the morning, and people are just starting to bring their pumpkins on, line the street with them, and hope to break a record here. I mean, we no longer hold the record, and it would be nice to finally take it back. Boston, those big bullies took it from us.
Yeah, Boston took it from us, and I think what the record to beat is 31,000 something this year?
30,128, I believe. And we've gotten close in the past. Back in 2006, I believe it was, anyways, 28,958 was in 2003. That's when we had the 8th world record. So we've gotten close before, and then the numbers have slid down a little bit. It's been more of people coming to look at the pumpkins. It would be nice if you're coming down, actually bring a pumpkin. I know I brought quite a few to add to the numbers, so it would be really nice to take that back from Boston, because we're a city of just 25, 30,000 people, including the college, and Boston has millions of people to bring pumpkins to. It would be really nice to take it back from them.
Yeah, that would be nice, and it's going to be a good day for it, I think. I mean, it's a cold morning. I know there was frost on my windshield when I scraped it off to come in, but it's going to start to warm up. The sun's going to come out. And
well, it's a perfect fall day, really.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a cold start to
brisk,
the day,
but put on a coat, and I think you'll be all right.
But the weather forecast looks to be perfect for this kind of event, for the kind of pumpkin festival. I don't think we really have any real rain in the forecast. It looks to be a beautiful fall day to come out, have a great time, and hopefully really take that record back. And I would really like to do it this year, because Boston, it's basically a bunch of bullies picking on the little Keene.
Yeah.
And we started this. I mean, back in 1991 was the first what they called the Harvest Festival in 1991, where there were 600 pumpkins. I remember I was just a little kid, and we used to go business to business trick-or-treating, and they'd give us candy, and the pumpkins were just for fun. Businesses putting them outside their businesses, and people
a lot of
bringing them
businesses,
down.
I mean, and that's still the way it is. A lot of the pumpkins here are donated by businesses or just individual people bringing them in, but it is still a community effort.
Right.
And
that's how it started. I mean, it was just people having fun, getting the community together. Then in 1992, they made the first Guinness Book of World Records with 1,628 pumpkins only. So that
the threshold was a lot lower.
It was very low. And now we're going for tens of thousands of pumpkins, breaking 30,000 pumpkins plus if we're going to take this record back. And Boston's trying to do it again. It was back in 2006 that Boston made this record, and since then they've fallen down too. I think last year they only had 20,000 pumpkins or something like that. So even big Boston, it's difficult for them to compete with Keene. So hopefully, if you are watching this live, come on down, bring a pumpkin. But if you're not, this is also going out to other stations as an episode of our show. So if the format's completely different, that is why, because we are broadcasting this from the Keene Pumpkin Festival live, where things are just getting started.
Yeah, and I would say to people who are watching this live in the Keene area, if you want to come in, if you've been wanting to bring in a pumpkin, I think now would be the time to do it. I know what keeps a lot of people away is not the weather or even the crowd so much. Some people stay away because the traffic does get pretty hairy later in the day, and when people are trying to leave Pumpkin Festival, I mean, I think you've got 80,000 people here to 100,000 people. But right now, I mean, driving in, there were no traffic delays. So
yeah, actually
this is the time
parked
to do
right down the street, just right down the street. Once it gets to be evening hours and the jack-o'-lanterns are lit up, it's difficult to even walk down Main Street at times because everybody's here. But right now, it's a great time to come on down and actually get a chance to look at some of the pumpkins without running into all the crowds as well. Now would be the time to do that. But this is Free Minds TV, and the motto of our show is to challenge you, the viewer, to think outside the box. So we're going to try to do that a little bit, tone things down a little bit, because this is a different segment where our show is actually broadcasting live, and keep it themed, talking a little bit about pumpkin. And one of the things we focus a lot on the regular side of the show when we're doing this show is the nanny state and the government and other people who are concerned about little youngsters and the citizens, making sure that they're not too safe, making sure that everything is done to keep people safe and keep them from hurting themselves. And so I wanted to focus in on a couple of stories today, talking about that and how it ties into Halloween. The first one is coming from a small community in Greene County where people are real upset about trick-or-treating being canceled. Now, why is trick-or-treating being canceled, Nick? Well, for the sake of protecting children, of course. It's just too dangerous of an activity to go down the street and knock on people's houses and ask for candy.
That's the claim that's made, and you're going to hear that a lot, especially given the time of year it is. But the fact of the matter is, most of the stories you hear about problems trick-or-treating, whether it's poison candy or razor blades and candy, by and large, that's urban legend. That really, it's very difficult to find instances where that actually happens. And people get very paranoid about it. They'll do things like screening the candy through metal detectors, through x-ray machines, to see if there's any razor blades or things in there. But it's not, by and large, a very dangerous activity at all.
Well, I like it. I think it actually brings communities together, and if people don't want to participate, they can just shut off their lights and be bah humbugs, and I hate trick-or-treaters, whatnot. Okay, whatever. But for people who want to participate, I think it's a great thing. I think it brings people together, and canceling it just, it seems, it doesn't really go with the whole Halloween spirit. Now, the town of Bobstown in the Greene County Township, what they're doing instead is they're having a Halloween party, Nick. So don't worry, they're not canceling Halloween altogether. The little kids can go to the fire department where they're going to have a 4-hour get-together where they still get their sweets and stuff. So not all the fun is gone, but really, to me, it would be.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
the fun of it is going around and seeing how many houses you can knock on and how much candy you could actually bring home.
Yeah, and there's a community aspect to that too. I mean, that's one of the interesting things about trick-or-treating is you're a little kid, you get to go around town, or at least around your neighborhood, and knock on people's doors and say trick-or-treat, and you get to show off your costume. I don't think it's just about getting candy. I mean, that's...
No,
you can
go to the store and buy candy
Yeah.
with a couple of weeks worth of allowance. You can go and buy all the candy you could possibly get. The game is seeing how much you can get and going out, whether you're a younger kid going out with your parents. I remember that was a lot of fun for me, going and having my parents walk me around. And then when I was, I don't know, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, going around with my friends. And that was a huge fun aspect that I looked forward to for weeks. And not having that, it just seems very depressing. Now, fortunately, governments all over the country and the world are not taking off on this. Most governments are still very pro trick-or-treating, and that's where we are broadcasting from in Keene. People are still going to be trick-or-treating come this Halloween, and in fact, the whole city of Keene is sponsoring this great pumpkin festival. So it's not true of everywhere, it's just this one town so far that I've heard about. Maybe there's others, but so far it's not taking off, and I hope it stays that way. I hope people can at least say, yeah, it might be a little bit dangerous, but so is life. Life can sometimes be dangerous, and trick-or-treating, going around collecting candy once a year, it's one of those risks that I know I'm going to be willing to let my kids take. I'm going to take them trick-or-treating, Nick, and I hope other people will do the same.
And that's
keep
the
spirit
thing,
alive.
is that life, there are risks in life, and the fact of the matter is everybody is going to die. I mean, something is going to take you out of this world, but you might as well, you know, have a fulfilling life and have a good time while you're here. I mean,
Right.
to me, that's kind of the point of being alive, is to try to experience life and not worry about all of the little things that could kill you or harm you. I mean, if you go through life like that, you're not going to have a very good time.
Right. There are certainly lots and lots of dangers in life, and if we are being, if you can't hear some of the stuff, they're starting to check the microphones and stuff here because they're kicking stuff off, but hopefully things will go right. If you are watching this for the first time, I did want to let people know that we do have a website, freemindsmedia.org is where you can go online to get all the archives of the show, see what the regular side of the show is like, as well as the radio show that we do, and all sorts of blogs and other goodies up at freemindsmedia.org. And if you disagree or have comments on anything we say here, you can certainly share those opinions with us, FMTV at freemindsmedia.org. All right, Nick, speaking about carving pumpkins and dangers and the Pumpkin Festival, I've got another story that just seems ridiculous to me, but it shows the times that we're living in and how nanny statism really can ruin fun for some people. I know that I look forward every year to carving pumpkins. I love bringing them down here. I like the whole aspect of it. I was so excited to go and buy my pumpkins last night to carve them.
It's a tradition,
yeah.
and especially in Keene, when you've got the Pumpkin Festival going on, usually people end up carving, if they're participating in the Pumpkin Festival and carving a pumpkin for that, they're probably going to carve another one for their home. So you end up carving 2 or 3 pumpkins, maybe more.
Right. Well, I think that it's an excellent tradition. Ever since I can remember, I've been carving pumpkins, never had a serious injury, but you never can be too safe, Nick, and every year there are injuries from carving pumpkins, people slipping, cutting themselves, etc., etc. And their WKLY News is reporting that many doctors are banding together and recommending that people cease and desist from carving pumpkins and instead use magic markers and stickers to decorate their pumpkins. And right away I just said, well, that would make this whole festival impossible, because the whole point in the Pumpkin Fest is to have lit jack-o'-lanterns, not just pumpkins everywhere. I mean, there's pumpkin patches with millions of pumpkins in them. That's not the record we're trying to beat. We're not just trying to get a bunch of pumpkins together. I mean, go to a pumpkin patch, you can do that. What we're trying to get is carved lit jack-o'-lanterns. So if doctors, and I know this isn't all doctors, this is just a whole subset of doctors that WKLY News is reporting on, are recommending that we cease carving pumpkins for fear that we could injure ourselves and cut ourselves. It seems insane to me.
You could get caught carving a pumpkin, but just you need to be careful, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. And I don't really see the point in putting a sticker on a pumpkin or magic marker. I mean, that's not the same as a jack-o'-lantern at all.
That's just depressing.
Jack-o'-lantern's kind of, the candle, the actual flame has that kind of effect of lighting it up at night, and that's what makes it a decoration, makes it interesting. So
drawing on a piece of fruit just doesn't seem that exciting to me. I don't think I'd like Halloween. I don't think I'd get into the whole spirit if that's how it was raised, is to put magic marker on a pumpkin rather than carving it. But like I said, this is definitely not the spirit that we're in here. We're here with probably, hopefully, more carved jack-o'-lanterns than anywhere else in the entire world. But I just wanted to point this out because this is the direction that a lot of governments and a lot of people are going, this total safety route. And I just want to stop it before it gets out of control, because this is how these start, these small little rumors of it's too dangerous, it's too dangerous. Well, what next? Come on. I mean, I just want to nip this one in the bud, Nick, before it starts to spread, before other people start to say, yeah, maybe carving pumpkins is a little bit too dangerous, because it's starting already. The news stories are starting to pop up with people saying, we can't carve pumpkins, can't do that anymore. So,
well, lots of things are dangerous. I mean, cutting up squash, cooking. You handle a lot of sharp implements when you're cooking. That's dangerous too. Does that mean nobody should cook their own food? We should only eat machine processed food? I mean, it really depends on how far you want to go with it. And I do think there's a problem. There's sort of a philosophy out there that if you can make yourself even a little bit safer by giving up the most rewarding activities, then you should do that. And that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, cutting down a Christmas tree and putting it up, there's some danger there.
I know.
I don't know how many people out there watching have had the same experience, but a lot of time the Christmas tree falls over, you get those needles stuck in your hand, especially if it's a spruce.
Oh, absolutely.
Those things hurt.
And then again, I mean, we all get in a car almost every single day. That's the most dangerous activity that you can involve yourself in, yet we don't think twice about it. We get in the car and we drive to wherever we have to go. Yes, it's a very, very dangerous activity, but it's one that we're willing to take. And you know what I say? Carving pumpkins is one I'm willing to take, and I think that it's one that all people should be willing to take. Be careful, of course, but don't stop just because it's dangerous. I mean, it's one of those dangers that I'm willing to.
I don't know how dangerous it is.
It's not that dangerous,
There's a possibility you could injure yourself, but if you're giving yourself a serious injury, you're doing something wrong.
That'll teach you, be careful of knives,
cut away
respect
from yourself.
knives. Yes, these are lessons that people need to learn. So anyways, this is kind of the theme of what we often talk about on the show, is this kind of thing, pointing out some of the places where people are just these rules and regulations sometimes just get out of control, and it's a very slippery slope to get on when other people are regulating safety and regulating what people are doing. So that's what we're trying to do, is point out some of these things and say, you know what, this is life, this is the land of the free, this is the home of the brave, Nick. Don't be too scared to pick up a knife and carve a jack-o'-lantern, and bring it here, where we're broadcasting live, to the 2009 Pumpkin Festival in Keene, New Hampshire, where we're really hoping to break that record, Nick.
Yeah, hoping to break the record and beat Boston. I'm thinking that we might get a bit of a better turnout.
That's better.
I think we might have better chances
the record,
because there's a sort of a point of pride there to try to beat the big city, and I think we can do it. And I hope that people will participate. I think this year is kind of the big push to beat Boston, to take the record back. And I don't know if we do end up taking the record back. I don't know that Boston cares enough. I mean, it's not really a community event in Boston. There's not a tradition of doing a pumpkin fest. And in Keene, it's a small enough town that it's really the community putting this thing together. I don't think in Boston it's as big of a deal. I think some people in the city government there decided, hey, let's have a world record. Let's try to take it from Keene. But I don't really think they have staying power.
Well, they don't have the community aspect that we have, Nick. I mean, this is one of the things that's been putting Keene on the map, and I hope it'll do the same and continue for years down the road. I mean, it's only been going on for
well, it's been almost 20
years.
20 years now. So But I mean, I think it's a good tradition. You know, you do get some complaints about it. Honestly, some people.
The traffic. I know
the
I want to
traffic.
get my hair cut later this afternoon, but that would require me driving 5 minutes down the road, which would take way too long.
I mean, but it's one day a year. I mean, if
right.
you need to
it's
shut
okay.
down,
I can wait a week for my haircut.
If you need to shut down a couple streets near downtown, and some businesses decide to close, and there's a bit of traffic, I mean, I think it's worth it.
But it's one of those things that's worth it because it's bringing the community together. I think that community participation, bringing people together like this is vitally important. And I mean, there's so many volunteers that make this possible. I mean, Center Stage, I don't know if they have people on the payroll, but I know that there are a number of volunteers that just are giving their time, giving their resources to make this possible. So I think that it's a great aspect of it's bringing people together to do something that's really cool. Maybe it's not great, like you're not solving any huge world issues like hunger or peace or anything, but it's awesome. It's lighting up hopefully 31,000 jack-o'-lanterns. That's what I'm hoping we're gonna get. I don't know. If you have a different opinion, fmtv@freemindsmedia.org is the address, or fmtv@freemindsTV.com is how you can contact us.
Yeah, and well, it's starting to warm up a little bit, so again, people can come down if they want to.
I mean, they're still setting stuff up, as you can see.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
still
it's
the
really
very beginning.
started. People who are familiar with Pumpkin Festival, I mean, you can see that's Central Square behind us for Keene.
Right.
So I mean,
in 6
that's the
hours, it's
circle.
going to be a wall of people right here.
Yeah,
So.
well, maybe before that. I mean, things I think here in an hour or two, by the time we get off the air here, I think there's going to be a lot more people down here. There's a lot more already. The streets were pretty much deserted when I showed up at 8:30, and things have definitely picked up. People are waking up. There's still a lot of work to put in. I mean, you can't see from where we're sitting here really, but if you look down Main Street, there's an awful lot of scaffolding up for the pumpkins that isn't filled yet. There's a lot of empty space there, and hopefully they're going to be filling that here over the next few hours.
Oh,
but they are still taking registrations for pumpkins as far as
and they'll be taking them all day. I think they take them up until right before the final count is set later tonight. I think it's at 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. So you have all day to come on down here and bring your pumpkin in and register it. There's a number of registration booths. So don't just, if you are bringing a pumpkin, just plop it on the ground. I mean, that would be nice, but really we want to register them as well. So make sure that you bring it over to the booth, register the pumpkin to help break that world record. All right, Nick, we do have some more stories to get into and other things to talk about, but I wanted to just familiarize people with our whole belief system, because this is a different format, and a lot of the people who watch our shows are regulars to the show and understand where we're coming from, but someone who's just been watching regular media and the right versus the left is kind of shocked when they first tune into us. So I wanted to just shift gears a little bit and talk for the people who are tuning into us for the first time about where we're coming from, and when we're saying this big government, well, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean we want the Republicans back in power? Well, no, it just means we want less. And
right.
We've been getting more for a number of years.
Yeah, and you know, the fundamental issue here is that I think people should basically be able to do what they want to do with their lives and with their property, as long as they're not harming anybody else, infringing on anyone else's liberty, infringing on anyone else's property. I think the limit to what you should be able to do should basically be the equal rights of other people. And that's sort of at the core of this philosophy, whether you want to call it libertarianism or whatever you want to call it. I do, however, think that we do need some government around. I mean, I'm not somebody who thinks that you can privatize the police forces, you can privatize the military. I'm not even sure you can really privatize the roads on any kind of a real working scale. So I think that, you know, you do need some minimal level of government around, but we've exceeded that by quite a bit here in the U.S. I mean, we're told that we're the freest country in the world, which is debatable. I mean, if you look, it depends on what areas you're looking at. Actually, the United States, from an economic standpoint, our tax policies really aren't that loose. If you look around the world, there are a lot of countries where the climate is a lot more business friendly, a lot less regulated. And actually, I think it was a month or two ago, I was listening to NPR. Actually, I think it was near the time of the Independence Day, July 4th celebrations, and they were talking about how, you know, tax policy and regulation, the difference between the United States and Britain, if you look at the overall tax burden, is a few percentage points, and that gap is expected to close. So the message of that segment was, historians might look back 100 years from now and wonder what the point was in separating from Great Britain. I mean, for a while we had things pretty good. We had
Definitely had more freedom for a long period
yeah,
of time,
I mean, we
but
had the most limited government in the world, and you know,
and it made
American-
us prosper. It made the American dream come true for a number of people, but it seems to be diminishing more and more the more, as you said, business regulations, and that's just one aspect of it. If you're looking at the social freedoms as well, the freedoms of people to do whatever they want so long as they're not infringing on someone else's rights, we don't have those anymore either. We have more people behind bars in the United States than any other country in the world, and we have a relatively small population.
yeah, I mean, China, communist China does not incarcerate as many of its own citizens as the United States.
By,
and they have,
by almost a third. I
Right,
mean, we
and-
have
well-
over 2 million people behind bars. They have 1.5 million people
and they have a
behind
much
bars.
larger population.
And they don't claim to have many freedoms at all. I mean, we claim to be the freest country in the world. Well, let's start putting our money where our mouth is and start acting like it. I mean, communist China, as you said, much larger population. They don't have a constitution, a bill of rights to protect the citizenry. We supposedly do, yet we're locking everybody up. And it's really crippling us in many ways. It's taking productive members of society off the streets, giving them criminal records, putting them behind bars, and it's also costing a whole lot of money to keep them behind bars and keep them on parole and keep them in cages.
Not to mention it makes us less free. I mean, if we're going to make the claim that we're the freest country in the world, we really can't be the number one incarcerator of our own people.
Please.
Sounds like an
All
announcement
vendors
coming out.
must have their vehicles outside of the
All
footprint
vendors outside the
within
footprint.
the next 15 minutes.
15
You have
minutes.
15 minutes to have all your vehicles removed from the footprint.
All right, so if you are at home and you left your vehicle here and you're a vendor, get back here within 15 minutes as of we're broadcasting
Yeah.
this.
Well, they are gonna be shutting down the street entirely and on Main Street.
Yes.
I believe the footprint refers to the areas
That
within
are
Main
cut off.
Street and around the square.
The
yeah.
detour.
Yeah, the areas that are going to be shut down to traffic. So you have probably seen some vehicles driving by. That's people setting up pumpkins or setting up a lot of the vendor stands here, whether they're nonprofits, they're setting up to do some fundraising, and there's a lot of that going on. I think Sullivan Fire Department is behind us there, raising some money for their volunteer department, or just businesses. A lot of local businesses will, basically put up a stand and either sell food or do something just to be part of the festival here.
Right.
And probably improve their business too.
Absolutely. So, yeah, things are kicking off. Anyways, getting back, we were completely interrupted by that, which is fine. That's awesome. That's going to be going on all day. We are broadcasting from the Pumpkin Festival, so that is definitely to be expected, and I'm sure there will be a lot more of that as the day goes on. But just wrapping up here quickly, we're not Republicans, we're not Democrats, and that's not where we're coming from. We believe that there's something better, something more, something that will keep us all more free. And that's less regulation on you, on me, on everybody. Because, I mean, if I'm worried about my neighbor's individual rights, well, then my neighbor can worry about my individual rights, and we can all just be freer instead of sticking our nose in everybody's business.
And part of the problem is a lot of people will say, yeah, I want a free society. But a lot of people are only interested in the areas, the rights that are interesting to them.
Yeah.
For instance, a lot of Second Amendment supporters out there, they will talk a good talk about the Constitution and about individual rights and personal responsibility. But then if you ask them to try to apply that same logic to the federal war on drugs and say, well, where does the federal government get the ability to regulate narcotics? Well, they don't. But a lot of supporters of the Second Amendment, they don't care about that issue, or they don't think that people should be using drugs, so they're willing to ignore the constitutional implications there and ignore the philosophy that adults should be able to make their own decisions and be responsible for themselves. And the same thing goes the other way. A lot of people who think that the war on drugs should be ended, that people should be trusted to make decisions about what to put into their own bodies, don't believe you should be able to own the tools that you need to defend yourself. So there's inconsistencies there. And
Right.
I think we're much better off when we have a consistent vision of what liberty is. And I think a free society is generally a more prosperous society.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see that America used to be a much freer place, and we used to be much more prosperous. And as we start cracking down on what we're allowed to do, cracking down on business freedom, putting on more regulations, cracking down on social freedoms, we get less prosperous. And there's many, many factors that come into play. We could make an entire show on every one of these subjects. And hopefully if people regularly watch the show, they start to get this idea. But the fact comes into play with less freedom equals less prosperity.
Yeah.
That's just what it breaks down to in the end.
Yeah, and yeah, I generally agree. I mean, I do think sometimes you run into a bit of an issue when people are talking about eliminating government entirely, which we do get here in Keene, New Hampshire quite a bit. There's a group of activists who would like to see government go away entirely, and I just don't know that that's feasible. I do think you need a government around to be a referee for people when there are disputes. I think when you leave dispute resolution, when you've got an issue of someone encroaching on another person's property or an issue of theft, I don't really want corporations to be handling that. I don't want a private justice system, and I don't think you can really leave that to people to mete out on their own, because otherwise things don't tend to work out so well. When you leave it to a kind of a frontier style of justice, it's not a very great place to live, and you don't have that foundation for prosperity. I mean, if you're not secure in your property, if you're not secure in your own person, then you're not really all that free. So in my opinion, do away with government entirely, you're going to get a situation that's probably actually worse than what we have today. And I just don't know that you're ever going to be able to get rid of government entirely. It seems like it's been with us for all of human history.
I think most people are used to and want a certain amount of government. But anyways, if you have a different opinion, fmtv@freemindsmedia.org is the email address. freemindsmedia.org is the web address. And we are going to take a short break. If you are watching us live, we'll be right back. If you're watching us on one of the regular shows, because this is going out as a regular show to all the stations that we're on, we'll tune in next week for the second half of our live edition of Pumpkin Fest. But if you are watching this live, come on down and tune in. We'll be right back with the second half. We are live at the 2009 Pumpkin Fest here in Keene, New Hampshire. It is Toby here with you.
And Nick.
And we'll be right back. Stay tuned.